Hi everyone, welcome back to the Zicast. I'm your host Ryan Ziaks, and today I'm joined by sports communications professional Reiven Douglas.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. On my show, I interview people, get to learn more about them, and I'm hyped to learn more about you. So how about you kick things off by telling us about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm currently in my second year of grad school at North Carolina A&T State University, but I am also a sports communications assistant. I'm in this entails I'm in my second year as a sideline reporter for the basketball teams as well as the football team. And I also cover other sports through writing and sometimes social media. So I've gotten experience in like golf um, and tennis. And then also for the volleyball team, I've gotten experience with play by play announcing. Basketball team, I've been experienced with play by play announcing as well. I'm definitely just very grateful to learn about these different sports in general. And then I'm also just a very passionate storyteller. I love, love, love being able to learn people's different stories, much like you're doing right now. I
Mm,
love being able to learn about people's stories, tell stories, and just kind of grow in general.
incredible. And you spent some time at Quinnipiac University too, which is how I was introduced to you through someone I work with in the school's marketing team, Brian Coons. He made a LinkedIn post about you, and that was all I needed to know that you were someone that I should bring on here and get to learn more about. So how about you tell us kind of where your passion for things like journalism, storytelling, where that all stems from?
Yeah, shout out Professor Coons. Oh my gosh, I love my time with him. I love him so much. But yeah, I from when I was younger, I knew that I wanted to be in communications. I knew I had some type of passion for speaking, I guess, but I didn't really know the specific avenue that I wanted to go into. I had watched some beautiful women on TV before, Maria Taylor, Taylor Rooks, Andrea Carter, Sinead Kumage, like things like that, seeing them on TV. I guess Sinead Ogumke is more of a recent thing, but you know what I'm saying. And seeing those women, I'm like, okay, that's really cool. Like I would love to be on, get that opportunity, but I didn't really see that being an avenue for myself until I got to Quinnipiac University. And at Quinnipiac is where so like my freshman year, I started out, I was undecided. I didn't really know what I wanted to go into. But as I was taking the classes at Quinnipiac and the broadcast classes, the productions classes, my love absolutely grew. I love that Quinnipiac's curriculum is so hands on, and the professors have so much experience in the field, and the students I'm surrounded with have such a drive for the industry that I just fell in love with the craft of journalism. And that's just kind of where it grew from there. In classes to start just learning about it, I'm like, okay, I really want to go into sports. I really want to go to the broadcast side of things. And then I got the opportunity to get some hands-on experience with the Quinnipiac Bobcat Sports Network, and then in one of our classes, the Quinnipiac News Network. So getting that on hands, that experience there, and having just the moments and seeing these different sports and learning about these different crafts and learning about how to put these stories together truly just inspired me and into what I wanted to do today.
And any formative moments at Quinnipiac, I'm sure a ton that really told you you were in the industry you want to be in.
Yeah, I've got to go back to my first broadcast. And it was honestly, I wasn't supposed to, like, I wasn't on as like an analyst. Like I wasn't on the Quinnipiac Bobcat Sports Network when I got called into the broadcast. I was actually, they just wanted to get an athlete perspective. So I was on as like an extra guest as a color commentator. I think I was on with Connor Core and I don't remember who I don't know. I remember who else it was. Maybe it was Seth. It was either Seth or maybe Ben. But I was a guest color commentator, and it was an absolute fun time. As a broadcast team, us three, we had great conversation, great energy. The game was a good game. It was the men's game against, they played against Ryder, and I think it went into like overtime, maybe double overtime. And then the men won. So getting like experience to just talk about a game like that and like give a player perspective was just extremely fun. And then after like my parents had listened to it and some of our family friends had listened to it, they was like, Raven, that was so fun to listen to. It seems like you're in your element there. So getting that broadcast experience in sports was probably like one of my favorite memories, and it was where I kind of fell deeper in love into it. And then I would say for the broadcast, just the TV side of things, probably there was a story that I did in New Haven. A lot of the houses in New Haven are like older, and I think there was like lead in the paint of the houses. And so I did a story on that, a full news package. So I went out and I interviewed some people in the city, and then I also got to do like a live take there in New Haven, like on the street there in New Haven. And so getting those types of experience was just really fun to me. I was like, I really want to continue to do this.
Bringing you on for the player perspective, it was like foreshadowing
Yeah.
leading into your future experiences. And you mentioned being an athlete. Something that always interests me is a juxtaposition between an athlete becoming a sports media professional and bringing kind of transitioning their perspective. What sport did you play, and how did you kind of translate those experiences to your new experience?
Yeah, so I played basketball on the collegiate level, and basketball just teaches you so much. It teaches you so much about yourself, and I learned so much from my experience as an athlete. The biggest thing being how to navigate adversity. Basketball was extremely hard for me. I was not a star player. I was very much a role player and struggled with confidence on the court and performing to my potential. I put in a lot of work outside of things, but when it comes to translating it into the game, I struggled with doing that. So I learned a lot about myself in navigating that space when you're not doing your best. I learned the value of continuing to work hard even when you're not seeing the results, continuing to put in those reps. And then also, anybody who knows collegiate basketball knows it is a small world. The basketball space in general is a small world. So basketball brought me just so many beautiful relationships and friendships. Some of my teammates, especially here at North Carolina A&T, but that those relationships really carried me into my transition out of sports. So a lot of the people that I met helped me get opportunities, and those opportunities really opened up as I was transitioning out of sports. So those two things specifically, like the life lessons from basketball and also the relationships that came from the sport, really helped me as I transitioned into the industry.
Great teams need great role players, and we all play roles, and the work even star players play roles.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, kind of like through playing basketball, you mentioned those kinds of life lessons. Any formative moments in your time playing that really led you forwards as a person, or even made you think differently going into your media career?
Yeah, so this game in particular really stuck with me. There was I want to say it was the second game of our season. We were on the road, we were in Texas, we played against Rice. And our starting shooting guard, Malia Burcone, she got hurt in the first game. We played, I think it was like a 2 game road trip. We played against SMU first, and then the second game we played against Rice. And our starting shooting guard, Malia Burcone, she's somebody that we end up relying on like the rest of the season. She's somebody that plays like over 30 minutes a game. She got hurt. And so I had to step up into that role as a starting point guard. Well, me, I've never been in that position before on the collegiate level. At Quinnipiac, I was not relied upon as a player at all. I didn't really get a lot of minutes or a lot of opportunities. And so that game where I was challenged to step up and lead the team in a position where you can't just be on the court. Now you have to produce. Now you have to score. Now you have to lead. And I did things well as far as hustling on defense and handling the ball and doing stuff decently with the ball as far as point guard go, but I was afraid to shoot the ball. I got several opportunities to shoot the ball, and I was afraid to shoot the ball, and it ended up putting our team in a very tough position, and we ended up losing the game. That game specifically stuck with me so much because now my confidence issues isn't just about me getting playing time. It affected a group, it affected a team getting a win. So it reminded me, Raven, you cannot stare fear in the face and let that enemy or let that voice win. You have to be able to be courageous on the court, in life in general, to take advantage of all the opportunities that you have in front of you so that not only you can make yourself successful, you can help the people around you be successful, especially when you're on a team working to a common goal.
And what's especially compelling about that is that you took a moment in a sports game and you turned it into a story for yourself, like what you do for other athletes. So in a way, you kind of got your mind working. So you kind of knew that this was really the place for you, and naturally, confidence, something that I've struggled with, a lot of people struggle with, and that
Yeah,
kind of through that story, you're able to put it in perspective. Is that you those kinds of moments you can learn from them, and you could bring it into your life where that was a tough basketball game, but now you're bringing it into your own career. You could kind of
yeah,
think back on, let me take this shot, let me ask this question, let me observe something or something of the sort. And
exactly.
I'm kind of curious, kind of building on all of those things. What does your day to day look like as a communications professional or as a sideline reporter?
Yeah, so it looks completely different. Each day is different, especially on especially during times of the year where several seasons are going on, several sports are going on. Some days it looks like a full day, some days it's just a afternoon and late night, sometimes like just an early morning. Um, I can talk about specifically during seasons like when I'm sideline reporting, like for football specifically, or I can generalize it. Usually I start my preparation a week before when it comes to leading up to games. So for football games are Saturdays. For basketball, they have two games a week. So usually Thursdays, Saturdays, or Fridays, Sundays, things like that. So I get the opportunities to go into practice. A lot of times they practice in the mornings or kind of like during the day. I get the opportunity to go into practice and I make sure I take those opportunities because I want to see what's going on the inside. I don't want to just focus on the outcomes on game days. I want to know what is going in to the preparation. What are the coaches saying to their players? What are the players going through? What are the things that they're focusing on in drills? What are some problems that they run into? And that's something that I suggest to any journalist is that I feel like when you're stepping into a space where you have to broadcast and talk about sports, you want to bring a piece that is you into it. And I feel like that's my piece is I understand there's more going on behind the scenes and I value bringing those into light. So that's one thing that I do. I make sure I go to practices in the morning and then after I'll head into my office and kind of I'll write down like the notes that I took from practice that morning. If there's opportunities to talk to coaches like press conference or things like that, I'll go to the press conference, ask a few questions, listen to what he's saying, he or she is saying, and I'll write those things down as well. And so I usually have like a document going on based on whichever sport and I just write those notes down. And then throughout the day, usually I'm assigned stories. So usually since several sports are going on, something can happen in volleyball, something can happen in tennis that we need a quick story written or we need a feature story written. So I'll work on those throughout the day. And then usually leading up to game days, I think about 2 days before is when I write out my storylines. I pull from the notes I've taken. I'll do some research on connections and history between the two teams, or maybe a trend or pattern that's come in the history of these teams. And I'll write those down in a document and I'll pull the storylines and write those things out. And then I'll make sure I practice those out loud a ton. My roommates probably think I'm crazy because I talk to myself a lot, just or going through my scripts and the things that I want to talk about, and so that I'm prepared for game days.
Because practice makes perfect for both the team and then for yourself. And I'm
Yeah,
curious if you have any other kind of advice for preparation in that way, since that's such a huge part of the journalist job. It is just making sure you have everything in order. Any
yeah.
other advice for kind of having that all settled?
Yeah, I'd say you want to give yourself time because a lot of times when it comes to sports, you're gonna have a lot of information that you want to go through, and what you are gonna have to understand is you don't always have the time to talk about everything you want to talk about. A lot of times there are a lot of details. You're not gonna have time to talk about everything you want to talk about. So make sure you have the things that are like the biggest storylines and the most important that relate to the athletes. Make sure you have those kind of prioritized. I will say for your opening statement, we call it a lead. For your lead, I would write down your script word. I'll write down your script like word for word because that's what you know you want to say. If you're setting the tone for the game, that's what you really want to get across to the audience and connected. So I'd write that down and practice that a lot because that really sets the tone for your day. And then the rest of your reports I would have in bullet points. I really advise, this is something that I've had to learn myself, is you don't have to be perfect with every sideline report. You have to remember that this is a conversation to the audience. You want to be conversational. A lot of times to help be conversational is not memorizing a script, but just have talking points that you want to address. So for the rest of the sideline reports or the opportunities that you get to speak on camera, I would just bullet point some top. Like I think I'd write down the theme. This is what you would want to talk about, and write down some talking points that address the theme. And yeah, I'd say those like are the biggest things. And then you also have to remember that you are going to need to be concise because especially during basketball, you don't have as much time to talk. It may differ depend on whatever outlet you're working for, but concise is usually the key.
And I love the conversational aspect because I feel like that kind of authenticity that always speaks to people. And I always like to call it the irony of me asking journalists interview advice while I'm
Yeah.
interviewing them.
Yeah.
But do you have any kind of ways that you mentioned the conversational, any ways that you go about interviewing people or any
Yeah.
advice for interviewing, I should say?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is especially when you're interviewing people who are interviewed a lot of times they're asked the same questions or the same type of questions. So one thing I really, really find important is if you get the opportunity to do a pre-interview, highly suggest talk to your subject and figure out, is there a specific topic that you want to address? Is there a specific question that people don't ask you that you want to talk about? And is there any topics that you don't want to address or that you want to avoid because you're asked so much? Now, sometimes that's not completely avoidable. Sometimes, as journalists, we do have the responsibility to ask those tough questions, especially under news outlets. But if you have the opportunity, especially in a setting like this where you're podcasting, talking to your subject about what interests them the most is a great way to help the subject feel comfortable and to just open up about themselves, especially if they're talking about something that they love to do. Yeah, I feel like that's like the biggest thing is if you can talk with them before, that kind of helps lead into interviewing.
And I'm sure this differs based upon the coach or player's receptiveness to media. Like I always like the comparison, like Bill Belichick, for
Yeah.
example, who did not like the media whatsoever versus someone like Mike Tomlin for the Steelers, who would always give great sound bites. Because naturally it's the coach's job to coach the team and not address the media. I feel like that's how they view it. How do you go about kind of finding the right people to interview and then trying to get something out of someone who's doesn't want to be there, to put it
Yeah.
simply.
Yeah, I feel like it's always a tough one because if they don't want to speak, they don't want to speak.
Mm.
Especially I feel like I always, when I think of that situation, the Boston Celtics coach, I'm blanking on his name,
Oh,
but
Joe Mazzulla?
yes. Oh my gosh. He's one of those people that if he doesn't want to speak, he's not going to speak. But
Mhm.
I will say that's why it's very important to build a rapport. Because if you think about it, some coaches and athletes do not respond well to the media because they do not trust journalists. A
Mhm.
lot of times their stories have been mishandled, and a lot of journalists, oh, I'm not going to say a lot of journalists nowadays, but recently there's been things to where athletes are portrayed in the media in a negative light, things like that. I feel like this is something I'm seeing more now at my HBCU than ever. Being at a black school, you already have a stereotype over your heads, and you already have a certain narrative that you're viewed as. And there's been outlets who specifically focus on not like painting you in a negative light or painting our athletics programs in a negative light, our coaches and our players as well. And I say that in the way that they word headlines or word their angles to the articles. So there's specific things that have already been done to break the trust between the athletes and players and journalists. So that's why there's kind of a disconnect in that trust. So I suggest if there's any way to build a rapport through consistency, through showing up to practice, through covering stories correctly, through genuine conversations with these coaches, with these players, just to build that rapport so that they know this is a person that genuinely cares about this program and will cover it the correct way. that helps these coaches and athletes open up to speaking with you in the formal settings because they trust that you're gonna handle this with care. I feel like obviously that's harder on the professional level because these are professionals with much
Mhm.
more to do in their lives. But I've felt that finding different ways to ask certain questions or finding the deeper meaning or finding a deeper question to ask helps coaches and helps players to respond better because now they're not like, okay, this is a redundant thing and they're checking out. You're asking something that's making them think or something that they want to talk about. I'm trying to think if I can think of an example, like specifically like in a loss, people asking, well, what went wrong out there? Well, that's point blank. You can look at the stats and say what went wrong. They maybe were
Mhm.
out rebounded, or out hustled, or things like that. Switching the perspective to like maybe asking a question, hey, what's the message going to be in this locker room going forward? Or maybe if somebody had a great shooting night but still like maybe if somebody had a great shooting, I've always wanted to ask the professional athletes, hey, what is something about your shooting routine that's really shining bright tonight, or what is something about your shooting routine that's stuck with you so long to be in your career that you kept consistently, that's fine helping you find the success on the floor. Just shifting the focus so that you find deeper questions to ask individuals so that it helps them answer these questions and be in these situations that they obviously don't want to be in, but it kind of helps them talk about something they're more comfortable with.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the conversational aspect because something I've noticed from a lot of journalists I've interviewed, they have a genuine curiosity, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's something that people notice, and that's how you kind of build those strong rapport. And I also like how you highlight the importance of empathy in something like journalism, where like somebody, like you mentioned, somebody loses a game, one of the last things they're going to want to do is have a microphone put in their face and then have
Yeah.
to answer questions about it, where also like you said, they could be scrutinized for things they end up saying or have it taken out of context, which kind of also speaks to like the social mediaification of a lot of things, where
Exactly.
just the headline, just a post to get people commenting, and because anger gets engagement, sadly, on social media. I've noticed a lot, unfortunately. And so kind of how do you think you can kind of generate empathy, if that's the way to phrase it, in those types of low moments for an athlete? You kind of mentioned it already with kind of phrasing things differently, but is there any other approach you think works?
Yeah, I think one thing that I do is I picture myself in their shoes. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that as a journalist, I have the opportunity, especially at the collegiate level. I always remember that this is bigger than me. Like these collegiate athletes and these professional athletes are among the one of the smallest. It's a small percentage of people that make it to the next level, and even smaller that makes it to the professional level. So they've dedicated so many aspects of their lives to this sport to make it to this level. And I always think about me being able to be a piece of telling this story, of asking these questions, of being a piece of their big moments or even one of their hardest moments. I'm a piece of this because I'm reporting on this. So remembering that these are individuals who have put a lot to get to this moment, I'm handling this with care. So a lot of times I try to just picture myself in their shoes. What would I want to talk about? Obviously, I have to have a balance. What would the audience want to hear? But how do I pull this out in a great way? How do I build this moment if it's a great moment happening? How do I build this moment for them? What is it that they're gonna want to talk about, and what's
Mm-hmm.
gonna stick with them for the longest amount of time? What's gonna have the greatest impact? Those are the biggest things. But just remembering there are people that's put so much in to be here. There's so much more behind the scenes that I don't see, that nobody else sees, that they go through alone. Remembering those small pieces as you're covering these moments is the biggest thing that I would say.
And I'm sure something the athletes that they love as well as having someone that kind of like you said, someone that they can trust, and it kind of puts you in those kind of back to those kinds of situations. Can you take us into what your game day process looks like?
Yeah. So on game days, I usually arrive an hour early. If it's going to be a rivalry matchup, I'll probably get there a little bit earlier, maybe an hour 30 to two earlier. And that's just because before the games, I like to observe the teams, the
Hmm.
players, the coaches. Sometimes things happen pre-game. Like I know for some of the teams, like when it's a rivalry matchup coming up, rivalries are kind of big, especially in HBCU culture. So when those rivalry matchups were scheduled to play, a lot of times it would get heated like before the game. And so
Mhm.
those moments are something that you can pull from and talk about. And so and obviously, like I said, talk about it in the correct way. Don't try to downplay it, but talk
Mhm.
about them in the correct way. But those things are important to talk about. So I like to get there and observe and build a moment because like I said, the lead really sets the tone, and the things that we're talking about sets the tones. These pregame moments where these two teams are getting heated with each other, it's something that the audience doesn't get to see, but it speaks to the game. So
Mhm.
getting these moments and writing those notes down and delivering those is important. So being a part of those moments is always important to me. That's why I arrived to the games about an hour earlier or more. And then I also try to practice a lot and get those off. I love to kind of run through what I'm gonna say out loud as if I'm already performing it because I want to make sure I'm practicing the way that I'm speaking in the way that I want it to be delivered. And I should have said that as an advice for when you're like writing your scripts, write them out. If there's words that you want to be emphasized, points that you want to be emphasized, make sure they're bolded, underlined, whatever, so it sticks out to you, and read those the way that you want it to be delivered. So I get those. I practice before the game several times. If you're in the audience, a lot of people have seen me just talking to myself, and I have to do it. And so I write those. And then it's also a good time before the game because usually the music is going and so there's distraction. So it kind of helps you just lock in and get used to the atmosphere as people are coming in. And then during the game, after I deliver my first speech, it's usually like my first take is probably right before the game starts. So I go before the game starts. I watch into like the beginning, and then I usually go like at the media timeouts and stuff like that. So I have those two already prepared, and I have like other themes for the rest of the game. But while the game is going on, from there, I'm observing. I'm observing how the game is going. I'm observing trends, players, behaviors, bench, coaches, atmosphere, the audience. I'm observing all of these things and I'm taking notes of these things because there's something that you can pull to speak on as well. Because all of this is what makes the moment, what makes the game. And sometimes people at home aren't able to see everything that's going on in here. So I'm pulling and observing as the game is going on. I'm also going over and listening to the players, I mean, the team huddles, listening to what's being said, who's speaking up, what are they saying, what's the focus. Especially say the game is going bad for a team. What are they going to do to get it back? Or the game's going good for a team. What are they going to do to stay ahead? So I'm observing these things and writing those notes down so that I can deliver these types of reports to the audience and kind of connect these things. For football, I'm constantly walking up and down the sideline because, as you know, as teams are going on and off, they're
Mhm.
grabbing the groups and coaches are talking. So I'm in those huddles, kind of listening to those things and observing so that I can deliver those sideline reports and making sure I'm really giving a sideline perspective that the audience can't see. And then also at half times, I do interviews with the coaches. So for A&T, we do a interview at the beginning of halftime, heading into the locker room with our home head coach. I usually ask two or three questions. No, I usually just ask two questions about either how the game is going, or what they saw in the first half, what do they want to see in the second half, things like that. And then coming out of the locker room to end halftime, I always talk to the away coach, and this is an interview that's off camera. I just kind of grab some points, ask them a few questions as well, grab some points, put together a quick sideline report, and deliver a sideline report about the opposing team. Um, and then for wins, after we win, we also do post game interviews with players. That's one of my favorite times, for sure. Just ask them a few questions about their performance and the game of the day.
Because something else I've recognized about a lot of journalists or sideline reporters, you usually just think the job is being on camera and talking to
Right.
people, but really it's observing, it's
Yeah.
internalizing things, it's really taking in the moment to reflect that in your work. And
Yeah.
I like what you said too about the huddles, because you're the closest thing the audience has to the teams as well. So you're kind of in a way like bringing everyone watching or listening with you into these moments. So you're telling these athlete stories, but you're also the bridge between the people watching. So you have like these dual responsibilities through
Yeah.
while this all of this is going on. So you're kind of dealing with all of that. And you mentioned kind of your favorite thing being those post-game interviews. Can you take us into kind of any other of your favorite aspects of this process? Because naturally there's so much preparation. It's more than what people will see on camera, but I'm curious just what your favorite things are.
Yeah. Player interviews are for sure my favorite, especially as a former athlete. I think the biggest thing that I always like appreciate about this moment is being a former athlete and still covering the same school. So it's like some of my former teammates I'm able to interview. And it'll be like it's just a fun thing to just kind of do that. But I love talking to the players just because being a part of their big moments, especially these big wins. I love asking them questions and kind of seeing into their minds. And I may be weird for what I'm about to say. It might be a little hot take, but my most fun part is the preparation. I absolutely love the preparation more than I even love being on camera. I love the research and learning about the certain aspects. A lot of times they're like crazy storylines. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. There's a lot of times where I just love going into practice and seeing what's going on and writing these notes. And sometimes the players are curious, like, what are you writing? How are you going to even carry this over? Like, but it's cool to be able to be that kind of bridge and see both things. So I love the preparation. I love being observing, like being able to observe because a lot of times they just act like I'm not even there. Like I'm not, I'm just kind of like that fly on the wall. They're going about doing their thing and I'm right there and it just listening and kind of pulling from it. So that preparation piece and kind of gathering the information is what's most fun for me before even getting on camera.
I think that just means you love your job. I think
Yeah.
that I don't think that's a hot take at all. And then you're kind of all that preparation. I'm sure it's like, investigating in a way to
Yeah.
kind of really tell the best story that you can. And I'm curious that kind of through your work so far in sports media, do you have a favorite interview, a favorite game that you covered, anything that to kind of bring you down memory lane here that you'd want to talk about?
Yes. So one of my favorite interviews, it was a post-game interview for a football game. So our football game has not, I mean, our football team has not been very successful over the past few years. And this past year we had a very big game. I think it was against was it against Campbell? Was it against Towson? I don't know. It was either Campbell or Towson we played against, and there was a specific player that returned two touchdowns. It was over both of them over 80 yards. I think they're both over 85 yards. He returned two
Hmm.
touchdowns on back-to-back opportunities to win the game for this team. Now, this is a player who started as a walk on and has worked his way up. He is coming off last year, he experienced an torn Achilles, I think a ruptured Achilles. So he's coming off of a big injury.
Mhm.
And he's done this big thing for his team, and amongst other things, he's going through it was many other things as well. But to be able to be in this moment and do this for his team that has been struggling, it was a big thing. So seeing his emotion, I walked up to him on the sideline. I said, "Hey, are you willing to do a post game interview?" You could just see in his face, like he was excited to be asked that and to be able to do a post game interview. His teammates was like, "Yo, he just got asked to do a post game interview." Like it's one of those things. Like it may seem like a trivial moment to other people to do a post game with the player's game, but it's something that added to that memory for him. And I think it was like around his birthday or something like that. So like that, I feel like that being a part of that moment was very special. I just asked him a couple questions about what this game. Um, I think it was like if you had a word to describe your performance this game and kind of what he learned about himself in the day and things like that. But it's just the whole time you can just see he was just extremely excited about the moment. And this is something that it was like a core memory that he built for himself. And I feel like being a part of that moment was probably my favorite part of the season.
And rupturing your Achilles, that's like the worst injury that someone could have and to come
Oh,
back.
yeah, I would be
And
sad. There's no way I would be running anywhere after ruptured Achilles. That's
yeah,
done.
and to return two touchdowns, that's something that's so unique, so different. And then you got to kind of give him that birthday present of that post game interview and something, where he could be like, "Hey mom, I'm on TV," to something to kind of celebrate that moment. So really telling is kind of like what you've always been, a vessel for the athlete's story and a way to kind of put the cherry on top of a really meaningful performance like that. And I'm
Yeah.
curious if you have kind of I've asked you before, like if you have any advice. Do you have any advice for students who might be wanting to enter sports communication or do the kinds of things that you've done? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, for sure. One the first thing I would do, and I should have said this at the beginning, is have a strong relationship with the Lord. Start and have a very strong relationship. Make sure that you are spiritually connected because God will place you in open doors for you that is in alignment with him that you probably aren't even thinking about. My journey into sports has been because he has blessed me and opened doors for me and put me in situations that he's spoken my names in rooms that I haven't even thought that I could enter yet. So having that foundation is extremely important. Then the next thing I will say, and I say this to anybody who asks me this question, your network is your net worth. Meet and talk with people and connect with people, even it may not, I'm not saying just the biggest people that could are going to go somewhere and going to help get you a job. No, I mean the people who are the smallest of roles, or like you talked about, the role players of certain organizations. Meet and talk and connect and build genuine relationships with people, because that's how you're going to get into doors and that's how you're going to get opportunities. And the this I guess I'm giving three parts of the answers. I'm sorry. I told you I'm a yapper. But the third thing I would say in advice is don't say no. Volunteer for opportunities. Step up and be open to new experiences. The reason that I got into my position here at A&T is because I volunteered first and then an opportunity opened up. I gave my all in the volunteer experience, and my boss saw, hey, this person is really putting a lot into this. I have an opportunity to open up. Would you be willing to do this? So don't say no. Be open to getting new experiences. Everything teaches you a lesson. Even if you don't like doing it, now you know that you don't like doing it, if that makes sense. So continue to learn and try those experiences, build your network, and for sure, number one, get right with the Lord.
Yeah, and you have the big guy upstairs in your network, which is the best guy to have
The best guy.
in your network, and definitely also kind of that last point too, like persistence being key. I feel like that's a big part of journalism too, and just life in general is just always putting yourself out there and always kind of being adamant about the things you want because no one's gonna do it but yourself. But to kind of get to
Exactly.
learn more about yourself, I like to ask you some kind of get to know you questions. What's something people might not know about you, like fun facts?
A fun fact about me. Oh, I'd say a fun fact about me is I loved before I got well, not before I got into basketball. I loved swimming. I loved competitive swimming.
Hmm.
So if I did not do basketball, I would be really interested in doing competitive swimming. I thought it was very fun and I feel like I was in the best shape of my life. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh.
Has that been a sport you've covered?
No, I haven't been able to cover that yet, but I hope
Hmm.
I do get the opportunity to do that someday because I absolutely love it. I love watching it. Have a great deal of respect for swimmers. And now that I'm trying to get back in shape after basketball, I actually might try to get back into it.
Because I'm sure I know naturally basketball has a lot of needs or requires a lot of cardiovascular strength. I know swimming does. What's that kind of the difference of training for those two different sports? I'm sure swimming's very unique in the way that you build your body for that.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I feel like both sports are similar in the fact that you consistently have to focus on your conditioning.
Mm,
So we did a lot of reps where it was like building your conditioning, I would say. But we didn't just focus on in water stuff. We did a lot of like what we call like land workouts or something like that. I
mm,
forget. I did it when I was younger, so I forget like the specific term for it, but we would do like our core work and like arm work and stuff like that, like upper body strength and stuff like that to work on it. I focus on freestyle and breaststroke, so sometimes we would split up into like whatever your specialty like stroke was to do. But those were like the biggest things. I think the common theme was conditioning is a big part of it as well as core is a big part of it as well.
And
Yeah.
to kind of continue asking these get to know yous, what's one thing you love and one thing you strongly dislike?
One thing I love, 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 love is, well, I say like they're a thing, my family. I love my family
Mhm.
so much. I feel like they are and they're like they are who I am today. I love, and that's probably another thing that people don't know about me is I love to analyze my family, like my parents and my grandparents and the things about them. And it's like, oh, you do that. I see that in myself. Now I see why
Mhm.
I do that because you do that. So I love my family. I love to learn from them. Like hear
Mhm.
my dad. My dad loves to tell stories. I love to hear his stories. My mom, I love to just sit and talk to her. My grandma, she has great stories. Like I love my family and I love to learn from them.
Mhm.
One thing that I strongly dislike, stairs. Stairs. I hate to walk upstairs. I hate to look at stairs. Stairs always make me tired. I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life and I walk up some stairs and my thighs are always burning. I dislike
Mhm.
stairs.
So you like to take the escalator,
Yes.
and and it's interesting too.
Elevator.
Yeah, like what you said with your family, it's that's that journalism thing of being observant, and then kind of I feel like it's something you just is it something you can turn off, you think, or is it just always
Nah,
on?
it's always on. My dad likes to call me nosy. It is always on. I love to be in people's business. Well, I know I'm not supposed to be in people's business. I love to be informed. I love
Yes.
to learn
Mhm.
about people. I love to learn about where I come from. I love to learn about my younger sister. I love to like analyze her too. Like, oh, this
Mhm.
is my parents. Yeah, this is why you act like. Oh, this is my girl. Yeah, this is why you act like that. Like, I love to analyze her
Mhm.
too. But it's not something I turn off. I'm very curious and very nosy.
Yeah, see them do something, start to write it down. It's
Yeah.
like almost like you're
Let
their
me take some
therapist too.
notes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious to through kind of all the things we've talked about, what are some of your hopes and dreams personally or professionally?
Yeah, personally, I'd love to be like you. I'd love to be a award-winning journalist. I'd love to kind of grow in that aspect. I want to be able to report on a national level. I'd love to kind of do like what Taylor Rooks is doing, Amina Smith. I love to
Mhm.
kind of see these women, Monica McNutt. I love to see these women like on this level being themselves, not just as sports broadcasters, but if you look at their social media, they're just so they're such real people, such real women, and I love to get to that level to be my authentic self, so the show the world me, and then also bring young women that look like me behind and into these spaces and just represent these women well. So what that was the first part of the question, right? Like what am I hoping to do?
Yeah, yeah, like professionally and just anything personally too to kind of I like to manifest things on here.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. So professionally, that's what I want to do. I want to become an award-winning journalist. I want to tell my story. I want to build my social platform. I want to evangelize. I want to help people show that you can be a woman of God. You can show your faith on a certain scale and not have to worry about. A lot of people think about you have to be too cool and show this side. No, I don't want to hide any of it. I want to be my authentic self on this level, on a professional level. And then one thing about me on a personal level that I really hope that I get to, I want to be generate extreme wealth so that I can give to other people. I really want to focus on foster children. I want to create an environment to where foster children are getting more opportunities. And I want to kind of, I don't know how, I haven't fully worked it out, but I want to create some type of home to
Mhm.
where like I wish everybody could have a family like mine. I really do. So I want to
Mhm.
take some create some type of home to where these foster children have a family and like maybe like my family come in and like meet these kids and like they give them the love and they kind of we help them send them on their way so that they can create their own families, things like that. So on a personal level, that's like a distant thing that I want to get started. I want to generate wealth so that I can help kids who don't have family like mine feel the love of family.
And I think that speaks to the empathy aspect as well on an even larger degree and kind of taking what you've done and giving back. And thankfully nowadays too, there's so many outlets to
Yeah,
show yourself because there's podcasting like this, there's television like what Taylor Rooks is on, and all the other things that kind of like what you do through reporting. So thankfully, if you want to express yourself, it's never been a better time to be able to do that than nowadays. And
exactly.
something I also ask all my guests, what are some of your favorite movies and why do they resonate with you?
Ooh, I am a big movie watcher. I cannot pick a favorite, but I'll say my most recent favorite that I've watched is Freedom Riders. And it's my favorite because it just speaks to I honestly it was hard for me to finish it as for how emotional I got watching it, but it's one of my favorites because I think it just speaks to how we have different backgrounds and different people are going through such an unimaginable stuff. There's trauma that's built up from generations that kids are having to deal with nowadays. But if you really invest in these kids and understand and listen how much you're having to unpack, there's so much talent in these children. There's so much love and passion and opportunity and potential out there that if really invested into and really cared about, the world could be a much different place. So that's been one of my favorites recently. Yeah, I don't know. I love watching movies though.
Mm.
I could say my favorite like animated movie. Oh wait, I can't even pick that. Oh, Zootopia. I watched Zootopia 2 recently. It was really good. That's
Mm.
one of my favorite like animated movies.
Also, and I kind of think what you said about Freedom Riders, is that what it's called? I think
Mhm.
that's what you said about that. It's kind of like what you want to do through fostering too, which is like through your work, support the people of
Yeah.
today, athletes of today, and then help inspire the talent of tomorrow. And overall, Raven, you've really been very inspirational on this episode. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been a great opportunity. I love talking. So, thank
Yeah,
you.
and I love people who talk. This is the place to do it. And I'm curious if you have any motivational words or plugs or anything you just want to leave the audience with before we wrap
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, for sure. Keep being you. Take care of your mental health. Understand that you're never alone. You're in community. But the biggest thing I say is keep being you. Keep going. Any progress is better than no progress at all. So if you're taking one step a day, that's good. That's good enough. Just keep making steps and keep moving forward.
Incredible. And thank you so much for your time today. I adore the passion you have for what you do, all the great advice you have for people wanting to be in the media field. And I just love your approach to what you do. And that's something, whether you're sports reporting or whatever else, preparation is always key. And leading with your heart, leading with passion is always key. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your thoughtful questions. You're amazing at what you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. That means a lot coming from you, knowing what you're able to do. As always, this is Ryan Ziaks with the Zicast, where everyone has a story. Signing off. Thank you so much for watching.